said to people, if I had to live in the US, it's going to be DC. That's my favorite place. So I think the accessibility and just like the willingness to try, I think DC's really got it there because I think in the US for such a long time, we viewed electronic music as something to be almost ashamed of or that you had to hide because there's all these connotations of, heavy drug use or like reckless partying. Like when I talk about kind of DJ events in the streets that are like open to the entire public, it's much more like just pure house music.
There are a lot of great places to play around the U.S. and certainly around the world.
We have a brewery in Leesburg.
We've got that like critical mass here where like you're gonna fall into a house. You walk down the street, you're gonna fall into a house music party, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what's good, my friends? Thanks so much for checking out the Open Decks podcast. You just heard a preview of our conversation with State Secret, who joined us from Aix-en-Provence in the south of France this past weekend. Ryan and I out in the backyard. But Andrew was kind enough to give us some time to talk about his experience as a performer in France, where he's been for just about a year now, and talked about some of the differences in performance and the differences in crowd and in culture and music preferences and so forth. Great dude, part of the Kindred Effect here in the Washington, D.C. area, who we're, of course, good friends with. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Just again, some great stories, insights, and conversation about music from our friend State Secret. Thanks again for checking out the Open Decks podcast. Enjoy the conversation.
Are we on?
I mean, we're recording.
We're recording.
Yeah. State Secret coming to us from France, from Aix-en-Provence, yeah?
That's correct.
How you been, man?
I've been good. It's I love it over here. It's a beautiful place. Although one thing you'll notice on my face is that the French are not known for loving air conditioning, so I'm relying on kind of open windows right now. But that's one of the things the U.S. has going for it. You guys are not afraid to blast the AC, so that's something I've had to get used to, and I'm still in the process of getting used to.
Yeah.
But I can. But that's a small price to pay to be living in the small price to pay to be living in the south of France. So I'll take it.
In solidarity, we are outside in the Northern Virginia heat.
And it's tacky. It's sticky, and it's
which is way worse. Which is way worse. It is at least like it's dry heat here. Like it's Mediterranean dry heat. So like even when it's like blazing out, if you're in the shade, you're usually fine. But I do not miss the DC August, so I very much feel it for you guys.
It's all good, man.
All good.
So tell us, you first of all, like what you just finished your master's program, right? Was that kind of in the works for a while, or what brought about the move to France?
Yeah, what was the whole plan going into this?
Yeah, so you got, Tom, you're exactly right. It was to get a master's degree. I had, about 10 years ago, I'd studied abroad in France as an undergrad in a town called Nantes, which is the exact opposite of here. It's the northeastern coast in an area known as Bretagne. Gorgeous, but it is known for being cold and rainy. So, but I went there and like fell in love with it, and then kind of came back to the U.S. and was in D.C. for the last 10 years, spinning. And I got to a point where I'd always wanted to go back and get my degree. And one of my colleagues was a graduate from this program. It's a one-year program in the south of France. And I was hooked. And so here I am. So yeah, I've been here since August of last year. And I'm finished up the classes component of my courses. I'm still working on a master's thesis, an internship, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what originally prompted the move out here. So that's what brings me to Aix-en-Provence, which is, for those who don't know where Aix is, it's about a 30 to 40-minute drive from Marseille, which is like the second, like one of the biggest cities in France. So right in the south, right by the sea.
Have you ever had any old friends come visit you from DC?
Yeah, I had one friend visit me, but you don't get as many like throughout the year. Then all of a sudden it hits the summertime, and all of a sudden I think I have two or three that are already asking me to come down here, which I'm happy to welcome them. I mean, this place is, it's a destination during the summertime for everyone in Europe. So it's funny now because when I'm walking through the streets, I'm now hearing like every language, and I'm being kind of blocked by these giant tour groups as I'm trying to walk in between classes, classes or to my next meeting or whatever I have to do. So because X is a very tiny, like it was built for chariots and it's not built for like crowds. Like I would say, like if you've been to like, if you go in DC, you go between like the brown houses where you have like those alleyways, it's like the average size of a street here. So it's it's tough to move around. But yeah, so it's a lovely place. It's a fascinating city, and yes, and I have a lot of people that are trying to visit, which is awesome. I'm really happy to show people around. But it's funny that the moment the sun is out and summer is coming in, people are trying to fly in. So I welcome it.
You've been in addition to your studies and just enjoying life and showing your friends around, you've been spinning over there too, right? Tell us about
Yeah.
the DJ environment and just your experience as a performer over there.
You had to start back from ground
Yeah.
zero. Yeah.
From ground zero, oh man, I mean, to really sum up my career, I mean, I've been playing in the DC area and New York area for about 14 years at this point because I went to college at Catholic U in Brooklands. Um, but after that, I also spent time because I'm from New Jersey originally. Spent time DJing in New York City and New Jersey a bit, then moved full time to DC back in like 2016. I've been kind of been a part of the house community here ever since. I was for years known as Dirty Jers, and am now and then rebranded a couple years ago to Stay Secret. But with that kind of brief, background, I came here and, as you guys know, one of the one of the challenges with getting into DJing is, like with anything, creative or anything really anywhere is you have to know people, you have to kind of get involved in the community, and that takes time to build. It's not something that happens overnight. So I had the idea that I would love to stay here, but I was also recognized that that wasn't going to be a very straightforward thing. So the kind of promise I made to myself was like, I'll focus primarily on studying and whatever I have to do here for as a student. But if opportunities come through and I'll look around, then I'll take them. And then I got connected to someone in Marseille, played my first international gig in Marseille, and then a friend of mine introduced me to a promoter for this nightclub here in Aix-en-Provence known as IPN. And we started doing these things called the soirées américaines, which is American parties. So it kind of they played on me being like the exotic American DJ coming in to spin. And I go to this very small like American university in X, and they all go to these shows, and so it became this like phenomenon for I think it was every 2 weeks we would do a show, and we would just like pack the club with Americans and which they loved. So American college kids, and then because Americans tend to go out earlier. That's one of the big differences you guys know between the U.S. and in Europe is that they start late in Europe. Like I would open up at midnight, and there'd be no one's showing up until like 1:30. So one of the funnier things was like you have the Americans that are like at the door at midnight, and the club staff doesn't know what to do with that. So they let them in, so you have to kind of start heavy. But and then the French would actually follow up as many of them are starting to leave. So it was a very kind of funny experience, but it honestly grew into this phenomenon where I was getting recognized like not only on campus, but like just by random people on the street, which I've never had before. It's like not a thing I'm used to. I'm not someone that is used to like rolling up to a club in DC with like 40 people, um, or just being recognized like, oh, you're State Secrets. But I would be, in a cafe and they're like, oh, you're State Secrets. I saw you. It's Etienne. And it was like a surreal experience. I've never had that before. Probably will never have it again. But it was so much fun, man. I think um, I really, obviously, French people love to party. That's nothing new. But they have a very good taste in music. They're very inquisitive. They kind of really admire you kind of bringing your style to what you're doing. I think what I was doing, where I was spinning, I do a lot more kind of open formats, but open format over there is a lot houseier than it is in the US. So, I mean, there's so many differences. I mean, ultimately, electronic music is electronic music. Nightclubs are nightclubs, bars are bars, wherever you go in the world. So, when you're spinning or you're going out, you have some of the same pros and cons as you would in the US. But I think there's some cultural differences that I find very interesting. I mean, I could talk about them forever, but the first and kind of the one that really spoke to me the most is that um, it's how much the French, not only like them as like as a people, but also like the government sees electronic music as like an integral part of integral part of their culture. So the way in which that manifests is that you have so many events, and you're thinking like, who's funding this? And you look at all the events; they're all sponsored by the local government. They're like, we, their big thing here is that we believe this is a part of our culture and we want to make you feel proud of being French. And if you are going out and experiencing this music that we consider near and dear to us, you are being quote unquote a good Frenchman or Frenchwoman or whatever or what have you. So what that means, the way that manifests, there's so many free like festivals you can go to, or just very cheap ones. For example, I went, this afternoon, like tonight, I'm going to an open air event just outside of town. It's like €10 to get in. There's a local school that puts on like a yearly gala that's like this like 2,000 person thing in like an um abandoned like school aircraft hangar kind of vibe, and they just like it's really easy to get in, it's very accessible, so there's a big belief in music being accessible, which is what I really like. And I think the way it really manifests is that next week I'll be performing at something called Fête de la Musique. It's an event that happens around the country, but basically it's just like free street parties. Like you have DJs, you have music, you have bands, you have kind of all kinds of music, and they just play like around the city. And so I'll be me and my friends Metabyte. We're gonna be spinning for like 8 hours next to a 12th century church. It's and this is again this is all like really pushed by like the local governments, the local town halls. So I think there's this collective consciousness that I feel like we lack in the U.S. At least amongst like our local elected officials, because I think in the US for such a long time we viewed electronic music as something to be almost ashamed of, or that you had to hide because there's all these connotations of heavy drug use or like reckless partying. Whereas I think in Europe, and that listen, that exists too, but I think in Europe there's an understanding
Yeah.
like, no, this is part of who we are, we
Yeah,
have to embrace it.
and it brings
So
all this riffraff and all that.
exactly.
What about your own? I mean, your own preferences for what you play, what kind of events you're attending as a performer or as someone who just enjoys the music. Are your own preferences changing at all? Having been there for a year now.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm being exposed to some new artists that are a little more local that I wouldn't perhaps know in the US, like Bon Entendeur, Moloko, and Grosso Modo, or some great local artists that are pretty like they're pretty big. I mean, Bon Entendeur just did a US tour, but beyond that, in terms of like my sound, it's more or less remained pretty similar. Um, I think the music is speaks for itself. I just think you hear more of it. But in terms of like my tastes, I've definitely grown to appreciate a little bit more disco. There's, Afro House is big here. Though with that being said, I was a big fan of Afro House kind of before I kind of moved to Europe, but it's very big here, so that's cool to see.
I like what I
Um,
hear already.
Yeah.
but I will note that one of the issues I have with the Afro House here is that there's a lot of phenomenal artists that are coming from Africa, from South Africa, from Uganda, as one of your former guests was talking about. But it's a lot of like Afro House remixes of like Sabrina Carpenter, which I feel very conflicted about. So it's they a little bit. So there is that element of pop, and there's a lot of course French artists that are big that are not necessarily going to be as exposed in the U.S. But I think the style of music is very similar. I just think it's like and then some. Like if you like when I talk about kind of DJ events in the streets that are like open to the entire public, it's much more like just pure house music or like pure tech house. Like it's not like remixy. It's like we're gonna play a house set for like the entire community. So that's I think it's less that the style is different, but like imagine if Flash like in DC, like the kind of music that we play there is just like that's the main stuff you'll see at these large events. Like that is the
Yeah, that's
concept.
that's refreshing.
Yeah, it's
That's really
Yeah.
refreshing.
cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, please continue.
No, I was like, listen, you also have plenty of hip hop, you have rock, you have a lot of these other acts. And I don't want to make this seem like this kind of house heaven, which I mean, I love it, but like there's a lot of other ones, but I just think like when you say you have a DJ, the expectation is it's going to be house music or some kind of electronic music. Actually, hard techno is massive here, so
Yeah.
that's another thing that's very different. But yeah,
Ye- yeah,
That's, I mean, yeah, you kind of read my mind. I mean,
lot.
we were talking a lot
Yeah,
about how like hard techno and just the BPMs in general, rising. Like, yeah, I mean, just talk more about that. I mean, Ryan, I don't know
yeah.
if you have anything to add, but that's exactly where I was going. Like,
I mean, a lot like the big three DJs coming out of there, like that I'm aware of in hard techno. A lot there's three big ones in France that
yeah,
like Nico Moreno and um uh anyways, Italy, between that and Italy, Germany, of course. But yeah, that's
um, are you spinning any hard techno? Or is that kind of where you draw the line for yourself? Or
it's funny. When I was in the US, I thought I liked techno, and I did play a lot of like I play a lot of like Emily Len's like Charlotte David's techno, which is
yeah,
nothing
yes,
against that.
yes,
Like
yeah.
I appreciate techno. I mean, like my when I'm asked like specifically what is my sound, what is my style, I always say tech house, but like less on like the John Summit tech house, which again nothing against that. I love playing that too,
Yeah,
but I like house music that's inspired by techno and also melodic house. So
you're
I try
more
to take
Green
those two.
Velvet than John Summit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
great way of putting it. I think, but here, you have a lot more like again 160 plus BPM events. I've been to a lot of them. One of my good buddies actually connected me with my promoter. He loves that stuff, and Marseille is a great spot for that. I appreciate it. It's like I liked that kind of. I liked, the kind of the commercial techno. I think is what we call, or what do we call it? Business techno in the U.S., which is like
This-
more like pop. I don't want to say pop
Kevin
friendly, but it's like stuff that's
Kevin Saunderson's calling
well,
it TikTok techno now,
TikTok.
right? He just
Yeah,
he's starting to
TikTok.
bite
Yeah,
back.
sure.
Yeah,
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 that's
yeah,
so I like that stuff. And listen, I've tried like the 160 plus, and last week I went to this outdoor concert called Lubona Festival, and in the evening it was all hard techno. It was headlined by like Richie Hawtin, so it was really cool. I just think for me
oh, I love
personally,
Richie.
it's not quite my thing. I
Yeah,
really like Yeah, he's great. He was really good. I think of all the hard techno artists I did see, he was by far the best. But I think I also grew to understand like this isn't quite for me. But I love that it's big here because I know that we have a lot of hard techno fans and artists back in the DMV area. Shout out to my boy Rewilder, and I see them talk about like, man, I can't find these events in the U.S. I'm like, bro, if you were here, that's like all you can find. It's actually easier to find. I actually was the first
yeah,
connects I had in Marseille were the hard techno community, and I'm still trying to look for my crew, my house crew in France. So it's kind of like almost the reverse. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
hard techno is massive here, and there's a
yeah.
lot of events around it. Like if you have your shotgun app here, you're going to run into like five in your local area any given like Saturday night. So it's huge here. I'm someone that prides myself on like playing, a lot of being able to play a lot of different kinds of genres. And I think I have like said, like, listen, I don't want to bastardize hard techno. Like, I will respect the people who do it
Yeah.
and I'll let them do it. It's not going to be something I'm able to do.
You're seriously like everything I'm about to ask, like
Hmm.
we're like you're right there, because what I was going to ask you is not only yourself, but like are there a lot of performers in where you are, especially that are trying to do multi-genre, trying to expand beyond one specialty. I mean, we see it.
Yeah, everyone's got this broad
Yeah,
range now to
yeah,
explore three different genres in their sets. Yeah.
yeah. Are you finding other performers who are reaching beyond the genre that they're kind of primarily known for
Hmm.
or comfortable with? Yeah, some of it's good, some of it's not, but I'm just curious if you're seeing the same thing where people are going
I mean,
beyond.
everyone's ears just like they get sort of
Yeah,
bored and they're like, this will perk up the room, and
yeah,
they're like, oh, I'll throw in 145 BPM dubstep and just drop that in once in a while and
yeah,
shift again, and just big this big broad range of like things now with like
yeah.
switching genres.
It's not universal, but you can tell when somebody's kind of chasing bass versus when somebody is actually bending toward something new and experimental. So
Yeah.
that's a lot more than a
So
question,
kind
but
of how do I feel about, the artist changing up genres within sets, and kind of, what,
yeah,
I guess kind of, that's a big thing now. And so how are we kind of pushing that out? Or like, why are we doing it to like chase trends? Are we doing it to is as something that we generally like? Um, if that is
Mm,
the question,
It is.
I would
yeah.
say that for me personally, for me personally, I used to be like pretty strictly house, um, and that changed after kind of the pandemic. And I was always someone that could spin a lot of genres, but I was someone I didn't want to. I wanted to be like, no, I'm this serious house artist. Um, but I started spinning with my boy Pat Premier. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's a legend in the DMV. And we were
Mm,
doing shows up in Baltimore, and he does very open format shows. And he kind of brought me because I had a lot of great house stuff, which he does too. But he kind of wanted to showcase new talents, and so we kind of combined extremely well. And in doing that, I learned the power of being able to switch genres, be it going from, house techno or even just like to hip hop or to, pop music. And, I think that in terms of like when you do switch genres, why you switch genres, um, for me, it's not whenever I do it, it's never been to like chase a trend or to like do something that like this is big now. I think I should play this. But a lesson that I always have, and this is something that Laid Back Lucas said, is that if you don't like the song, don't play it. Don't even have it in your library. So every time I've like made a switch in a genre, um, when I'm playing by myself, it's because I've sensed that like this would be awesome or that I want to do it or that would be fun. So that's all to say that like I sometimes switch up genres, especially when I'm doing open format, like if and over you are, of course. Um, but sometimes that's fun, or actually a lot of times that's fun. And it kind of it keeps the crowd guessing, but also keeps you guessing. So my lesson here, I guess my message here is, feel free to do what you want with your music. If you want to jump around genres, if you'd like to, go ahead, but do so because you want to do it, not because you think that's what's going to kind of get you exposure. Because at the end of the day, you have to do the things you like to sustain yourself. It's a tough industry, so as long as you're happy, then that's what's going to keep you going forward.
yeah, you won't
Yeah,
see
it's well
me
said.
dropping in Dancing Queen anytime soon.
See, I love Dancing Queen. That's the thing. I love ABBA. Anytime I can remix that, I'm all in. You'll never see me like shoehorning it, like we were saying. You'll never see me shoehorning in a hard techno track because I know it's big here. I've actually
Cheers.
been
Yeah.
asked to do that before, and I was like, the request you get, and I'm like, oh no, there's the crowds here. I'm being hired by these people to play this kind of music, and also I just like, it's like drum and bass for me. I saw Flodon last week at Le Bonheur Festival. Who there's no Flodon. He's a drum and bass hip hop
Yeah,
artist that
yeah,
also that is kind of he's featured in like he's featured
He
in
does
Sammy
bass
Brady
house
tracks,
too,
he's featured
right?
in Skrillex, he's featured
Yeah.
in his bass house too. He's
Yeah.
yeah.
awesome. He was, oh man, he said when he said Marseille never blase, I was like I fucking lost it. It was great.
Yeah.
He was awesome live. But the thing is just like I would never, I can enjoy that music and I appreciate it, but I also see drum and bass and hard techno in the same groove that like if you want someone to do it well, it has to be someone that is like that regularly spins that genre.
Yeah.
Like if I go and say, "Hey
Yeah.
guys, I'm going to do like a drum and bass set," it's gonna suck. Like not to like downgrade my own abilities, but like there are people that can really feel that music. And and drum and bass. I'm not as big of a drum and bass guy, but there's an artist in DMV called Mark Taylor who you guys might know, and he every time he
I know Mark
plays,
Taylor. Yeah,
it's outrageous.
yeah,
Very
It's
humble
so good,
guy.
and it just
Very
like
nice.
oh yeah, he's a great guy, and just like it's one of those things where it's like it teaches you for certain genres, not to put down house, but I think if you have a good understanding of the music, it's easier to kind of play, not play well, but play. Whereas I feel like drum and bass and like hard techno, like you have to know that genre inside and out to be able to like really bang it within the crowd. So it's not something. So that's also part of it. It's like I realize that's not where my skill set is. It's not in drum and bass, and it's
Mhm.
not in hard techno, even if I do enjoy them or not. But
yeah.
it's just like that's not where my skill set
Yeah,
is.
I
Like my skill set is putting out house music.
wholeheartedly agree. I mean, and you have to be in your element, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy saw me do a techno set, and he saw that I was in my element.
Yeah.
And same with Tommy. You know,
When I'm putting people to sleep with my
no,
melodic.
it's well.
I love your melodic, Tommy.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I'm a
man.
melodic
I
guy,
love
I
so
melodic.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate
will
it.
say one thing, not drum and bass, but one thing I really love, and I do throw it in my set sometimes if the crowd is right. I love UK Garage. I love dropping that. The crowd
Yeah.
goes nuts for UK Garage. Anywhere you can play, like
yeah.
love Semi Virgie, love MPH. So that's another example of like genre switching where I feel like the crowd's really feeling me, and I'm like, let me see if they'll fuck with this. They do. It's explosive. So that's another kind of pro to kind of being able to switch genres. Like there are times where it's like I have them. Let me see if they'll go this far, and that's so much fun.
Yeah, it's almost like UKG is like built for that. I mean, it's yeah,
Mhm.
like we've done a couple UKG events this year, and with DJs who are who specialize in UKG, and like
Miracle
for
Tech.
us, yeah, Miracle Tech,
Yeah.
right? Like it's really it's a fun genre, right? Like it really is, and it mixes well
Yeah.
at the at the right BPM, especially if you're high energy with like house. But
High energy, but like it's
yeah,
kind of like there's like a lot of it sort of audience sort of
I
hearing
mean high energy to me, but yeah,
recognizable like like remixes of whatever
yeah,
the tracks are, and
yeah,
the whole current system of sing along and dancing and whatever that works with a Gen Z rave like
yeah.
audience. I don't know.
And you're right. I think
Yeah.
kind of back to where we were about being in your element and kind of doing experimentation is great when I think it's happening in the studio or on your own time. Too much experimentation in the public sphere uh, can lead to disaster pretty quickly. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I don't. So I try to
So
stay in my lane. That's
I
yeah.
learned to stay in my lane. I've learned
Yeah,
hard way as well. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
It also, I mean, it gives you a lot of appreciation for different artists the way they play it, and it
So
also goes
what's
back to when
what's
people
the
start
plan
playing
next?
house.
Sticking around in Europe for a while?
Well, my plan for right now is I'll be staying in Europe until
No, continue.
I'll be staying in Europe until the end of August. That's when my visa expires. I am looking for opportunities, of course, stay longer. Although, visas are tough, man. I don't know if you ever had to get like a proper like long-term visa in another country, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of stuff. You have to like give a reason while you're there. Um, and so being here on a student visa is easy, but getting having to get someone to sponsor you for a job or whatever is a lot more difficult. So I'm exploring my options, but it's likely for right now that I'll be going back to the US at the end of August. But with that being said, I do have the whole summer here, and I'm trying to explore my options in terms of what I can do while I'm here. I really want to kind of explore the Marseille scene, for house because I think there's just a lot of stuff there I haven't had a chance to tap into. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to this summer. Um, and I'll be continuing to a certain extent my residency with IPN. It slows down in the summer because
Mhm.
we don't have as many students that come through, but I'm looking to pick it back up in August when we have some more Americans. But I am doing like a big like I'm playing it this week, but I'm
Yeah.
also doing like a big Fourth of July thing for like all the expats that are in town. So that's going to be a real big show that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, so that's kind of my plans in the short term, and then in the U.S. I'll be trying to kind of really hit the
Oh,
ground running while I'm there. I'll also be
Nice.
looking at
yeah.
events back here. I wouldn't mind flying back for a show here. But I just kind of as we hit the fall, I want to be as nimble and flexible as possible with like, all the
Mhm.
different places that I can go, be it in the U.S., be it in Europe.
Cool.
So that's kind of my short-term goals, and then in the long term, we'll see what happens. Depends where jobs take us. Depends where life takes us. I think an important lesson for me, having had to move a couple times, is that you have the talent and the resources to be able to restart wherever you are. So even in a place like Aix-en-Provence, where I felt like I wasn't going to know anyone or not be able to meet anyone, I was able to make it work. So I think that's an important thing for people that are nervous about trying new experiences. That you have a lot more capacity to reinvent yourself in new places than you realize you do.
That's I mean, again, well said, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like a just an all in all like great experience. Like if you're gonna kind of strike while the iron's hot in terms of professionally, academically, like musically, it sounds like you've had a really good run. Um, What about so are you coming back to DC, or I guess it doesn't matter because like the Kindred Effect, are you still sticking with the Kindred Effect?
We'll see. Probably, I think. Again, it's tough to make plans because even
Yeah.
if I come, I really like it here and I would love to stay. So even if I have to come back, I'm always really looking for opportunities
Yeah.
to move straight back here. But the short term is in the U.S. I would be with the
Mhm.
Kindred Effect. I think they're really building something very special in DC. They're starting to play very regularly Flash. Just, they
Yeah.
got some good people on their team. I love Ben. I love Julia. I love the whole crew. Um, when I go back, going back without a job, so I'll be moving in a little bit with my parents, who are outside Richmond. So I'll be in the Richmond area. So that's the short-term game plan, and then from there it's kind of
Okay.
Okay.
it's up in the air. But we'll see what we can do. I think I'll be spending a lot of time in DC because again, I've spent the last 10 years in DC. DC is what I know. I love it. I've said to people, if I have to live in the US, it's going to be DC. That's my favorite place. So. I just think there's a good scene there for music. I think having started, growing up in northern New Jersey, and it's changed a lot over the years, but I think one thing about DC that's underrated by a lot of people is the fact that if you have a vision and an idea, a lot of venues will give you the green light to give it a try. Whereas I think there's a lot of parts of the US where
Yeah.
the view of music is very shallow, and there's only certain pockets of electronic or house music or whatever your genre is that you can find. It's obviously easier in bigger cities, but I think for me personally, it took a long time for me to develop as an artist because I didn't understand the concept of DJing. I didn't know where to look. I didn't, it have access to gigs where I could go. It took me over an hour and a lot of money for a college kid's living it with his parents to get into New York City to play at events. So I think the accessibility and just like the
Yeah.
willingness to try, I think DC's really got it there. So I think that's one of the big pluses of the area. So so if still gonna be trying to figure out a way to stick around here. But if I go back to the US, I would go to DC because that's where the most opportunities are.
Awesome. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. The number of opportunities, like, and the
We
and the openness, it's pretty astounding because we've
yeah.
done, we've continued to reach out to other cities to just to get more insights on the scene and meet other people outside of DC. And there are a lot of great places to play around the U.S. and certainly around the world,
We have a
but
brewery in
we've
Leesburg
got that
in
like critical
Rashburn.
mass
Yeah.
here where like you're gonna fall into a house. You
Yes.
walk down the street, you're gonna fall into a house music party, right?
Yeah.
And I love it. Or electronic music, whatever. I can't get enough, man.
No.
Um, it's hot, man. Ryan's going to his second bottle of water.
So yeah, I'm already finishing up my water here.
I've
So
lost 2 pounds throughout this whole podcast of sweat.
and listen, listen. I thought I was gonna
um,
be I thought I was gonna lose a lot more weight here, but the food's too good. But I have been trying to sweat off all the carbs I
I
have
know
been.
those baguettes cannot be turned down, my
They,
friend.
you cannot. I've turned into such like a French person in that like you'll see me come from the store with like a baguette in my arm like walking around. It's hysterical. I'm gonna be like that guy going back to the US. So like France is
Yeah.
different. I walk everywhere. And so that's going to be that'll be a fun kind of moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have you ever felt like, you go to France, you don't want to look so American. You want to like go put a scarf around and tie it just to not stand out. That, stigma of like,
I've-
you're too American.
I feel that way. I don't
Yeah.
know if I could pull it off though, man. You pull it off. You can pull off.
Yeah.
You can pull off everything everywhere. Me, I'm too much of a fucking dork.
You're wearing this
Like,
hat.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it's very funny you asked that question because in France I when I moved here I left a lot of my like quote unquote American wardrobe back in the US because my thoughts like okay I can't stand out as an
Yeah.
American. I do speak French so that helps, but nonetheless there are like mannerisms just things that we do that we don't realize. But so my whole thing was like okay I'm gonna try to blend in as best as I can. However, the more I started doing these parties, these soirées américaines, um, in the US, I wear a lot of like snapbacks or like snapbacks, and I left them all at home
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that's not a thing we do here in France. Stylish, this is, you dress well. Not so many scarves in the south of France, but in the north they are required. But I will say that the more I started, but because
Living the dream.
but because kind of like American culture is kind of like, I don't want to say fetishized, but it's like, they see in the media and they try to mimic it, especially the younger generation. That's for my shows, they're like, you have to American it up, Andrew. I'm like, what does that mean? Like so I've actually like bought snapbacks and started wearing those again to look more American, which is hilarious. So, I've become what I didn't want to be.
It's funny how you
But
say that. They're all like, yeah.
but no, we love
You
it.
see them
Still it.
like
I'm
wear
like,
a lot of like Americanized things. Yeah,
yeah. So,
like they're
I've
wearing
tried to.
NBA like shirts and stuff. Yeah,
Right, but you'd be surprised how many people down here wear that. Because yeah, I mean, not so much in like Paris per se, but like in Marseille is very different. It's much more.
yeah.
Marseille is a very gritty city, which I love. I love that. Marseille is kind of like
Mm,
a haven for like a lot of immigrants that come in from North Africa and from Eastern Europe and everywhere else. So
mhm.
you have, and it's like this port city. It's a little bit gritty. It's known for being a little bit big, having a bit of a bit of crime in the area. Although if you ask me, it's like their rates of like violent crime is like nowhere close to your average American city. Not to be one of those guys, but it's
It's like
just
the
like
Bronx.
it's like
Yeah,
not comparable. Like I would say it's like Des Moines, Iowa. Like it's fine. Like
Yeah.
just it's. But anyway, point being, it's like it does have like that working class grit to it that I really like, which I think kind of reflects in its music and its culture. And so like here, the style is to
hmm
wear like almost like a jumpsuit, like a matching jumpsuit. I should note, like the sweats and the top always match. But like but it's always like an OM, so like Olympique de Marseille, like the local soccer team, they always have that going. You might have like the Fisher hat going. You might have like the Adidas black cap. So like, it's not like, Champs-Élysées,
Yeah.
fashion.
Serbian DJ.
Basically it does look very Balkan, which makes sense. There's a lot of Balkan immigrants here, so it's kind of
Yeah,
funny how that works. So it's like a combination of like North African, West African, Middle East, Balkan, Eastern European influences that are all kind of meshed into one. Um, and whatever American influence has seeped in that week. They love.
yeah.
I mean, not so much this summer, but they were all about Charlie XCX when I started playing. Hey, Charlie, Charlie. They love Charlie XCX. So that was a funny one for me. It also turns out that the not so much, well, actually now, yes, the kind of play Bad Bunny phenomenon is not confined to the U.S. That's everyone loves Bad Bunny. They
Darn it.
they have no idea what he's saying, but they love it.
Yeah.
I thought it was over, man.
Well, 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 he just dropped his new album, so now it's back again.
Here, let me get my phone out.
Yeah.
And here's you in the DJ booth.
Yeah, I will say they're much more respectful. They are
Man.
much more respectful with requests, though. They're much. You get sometimes, or
Yeah.
whenever I've gotten like jerk requests, it's usually been from another American or like someone from like not from France. They're very respectful. Actually, the last time I got like the thing, on the forehead with the screen was Viva DJ. It was like long. It was like Go DJ. We love this. So that was like really cool. So you don't get the screen on the forehead as
Oh,
much.
sweet.
So they're much more
Love that.
respectful about that. I think it's another. I don't want to say like
Yeah.
no French people like that. I've gotten.
Those are so like affirming and yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny.
What's so okay, requests are one thing. What about the phenomenon of every party you go to, half the people there are DJs and they're lined up with their USB. Is that happening to you over there? Or do you actually get to play without interruption of, hey, I got my
I
USB,
haven't
let me
had the
spin.
I'll just say, just hand it over. I'll plug it in. I'll play your shit.
no, I've never had
Yeah.
I when I spin there, I often spin alongside another French DJ. So sometimes his buddies will come in, but it's extremely rare for another artist to be like, "Yo, play my." It's not a congress of DJs at where I play at the very least. To an extent, my experience is limited, but
Yeah.
I do think
Oh,
that there is in terms of, it's not limited, but less varied in terms of places I played. I played in two venues, but where I play, I've not had that experience. People aren't coming up. I like to think that they just respect whoever's playing. But it could also just be like maybe I just happen to be at a place where it doesn't happen. Maybe I play a different club, and then there's a Congo line of artists like myself trying to play. So you never know. But I've
good.
not had that
Good.
experience.
Be there for the music. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it could just be that you're really fucking good too, man.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I think so.
That's sweet, guys.
dude, I'll dance my ass off the house music. You know me,
Yeah.
Tommy.
It
Yeah,
is funny. My the guy I play with, Balt, love him, but he's like the classic, like, not gonna make any facial expressions while I play, gonna, be very focused. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna be singing along to everything I play. I'm gonna be out and loud. I'm one of those expressive artists behind the booth. I'm not the stereotypical European, like,
Yeah.
I'm too cool. I'm too cool to dance. No, absolutely not. So that's one thing about me. I think
darn it.
I don't know. The people that come to my shows always have a good time. They love me. So
Yeah,
that's
I know that
Not
feeling.
even a facial twitch. Not even like
I've
just poker face the
I've
whole DJ
I've
set.
I've
Yeah.
loosened him up a bit. I've seen him get a little more crazy. Usually when he has a few drinks in him,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, he's it's I've noticed that with him. That he's much more like focused, which is fair, but it's just like for me, I'm better when I'm having fun. I think that's for a lot of artists. I like beat match better. I
Yeah.
mix better when I'm feeling the music I'm playing, as opposed to when I'm like too rigid. Because I've been too rigid before, and I call it
Hmm.
kind of like, it's like the first 30 minutes of a set where like you're not sure what you're doing just yet, until you kind of like you
Yeah.
feel out
Yeah.
the crowd, you find the groove, and then you're good. But yes, that's
Yeah.
I'm more expressive than
Good.
most artists here, so that's one thing, which I do think is good about the Americans, is that we are happy to dance and have fun. So my favorite, I know you connected with him recently. One of my best friends in the world, Sarcasm. That man has a stage presence like
Yeah.
unlike anyone else. It's
Yeah.
incredible what he can do. Like I tend not to talk on the mic because I sound like a dork on the mic. But he is someone that
Yeah.
has turned a mic into like a weapon, and it's like so cool when someone can do that. I don't think you can teach that. Like, that's something I really respect about him, is that he's, number one, very talented at what he does, but number two, he like finds new ways
Yeah.
of implementing a live element that I feel like a lot of artists, myself included, aren't good at doing.
All right, so this is a moment where the transatlantic connection got lost for just a few seconds. So just wanted to let you know why we're jumping from mic work and sarcasm onto the next one. When you're doing this thing across continents and time zones, it's bound to happen. But Andrew is back in just a moment. Thanks for hanging in there with us, guys.
Oops. Oh man, we were rolling there for a
Yeah.
second.
We were
We were
rolling. It's
rolling
okay.
I do appreciate your guys' patience. I know that doing this
a
across the
while.
pond poses its own challenges, but appreciate you guys with that.
I think
Yeah.
my Instagram story upload deal was the blame for this.
we we got you back, man. It's
Yeah.
funny, like this. We've done this outside a handful of times now, and it's gone so well that we were bound to run into a snag. So
Mhm.
our apologies,
Nah,
dude. It's
dude, it's
just
fine.
it's we needed to get kicked in the ass a little bit. So
It's part of the fun. It's part of the exploration process. And I used to podcast too a little bit, with Circa, actually. So it's something that I'm used to kind of encountering, as like you always just learn as you go. So, but I've actually been really impressed with what you guys have done with it so far. I loved what you guys did, especially when you
thank
did the
you,
episode in the
thank
Music
you.
Box with Cass and Sean, who are just all like, Camille's my guy, and they're just awesome, awesome guys.
Those are our boys,
Yeah, man.
man.
I
Yeah,
love the Music Box too. It's like such a cool,
yeah, that was
it's such a cool spot. I love playing there. Anytime I have it's like there and Old Shabine for Transit. Whenever I'm asked to play there, it's an immediate yes. I love it. It's just such a cool community vibe.
Woo.
yeah, man. Yeah, I think almost every episode we talk about Music Box. I mean, Rich is just so accommodating to not only us but like performers throughout the region. And he's on top of
He's
it.
great for the
He's a
DC
pro.
scene. He
Like,
just
he's got
says,
the
yeah.
space. He's really great for our DC Northern Virginia scene, man, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and Transit. I haven't been. I used to have I had a Wednesday night like bar gig for the longest time, so it was really hard to get to Transit. And then we had Wednesday night. We were doing like some down tempo stuff for a while, but Wednesday nights are starting to free up. So I'd love to get out the Transit more often, because what they've
Yeah.
done for 20 plus years, 21 plus years, phenomenal, man. Like that's I can only like dream
Yeah,
of that.
we're very fortunate to live in all these different worlds.
Yeah,
Transit and Music Box.
yeah,
So far in Flash, no, but yeah,
yeah.
hopefully we'll get there.
Um, Yeah. Well, look, man, we are, we are really grateful that you decided to talk to us. We are just, yeah, like trying to expand this beyond, obviously beyond borders, but beyond DC. And the more we talk to people, the more excitement and enthusiasm we're getting for these conversations. And, um, one of these days we'll level up and maybe get into the
We are
studio. But
leveling up, man.
yeah.
You're in France. We're
I
doing
mean,
a podcast with a guy
he's
in
leveled up. We're
France.
still
Yes,
dorks in my backyard,
your
man. Like,
beautiful backyard.
yeah, whatever. His beautiful backyard. So any parting thoughts or just kind of I know we talked a lot about what's next for you, but just in general, any thoughts on music in general, where things are headed, trends, whatever you want to leave us with.
There's kind of surface level differences between, you know, the way music is, or the way clubs are done in Europe versus the US, and in other parts of the world. But I think what they all have in common is the community aspect of it. And you have a lot of really, cool people that are just trying to build a safe space for, ravers and people that share the same view of music as we do. Um, what I will say, and what I really love about you guys kind of expanding this to different cities and different countries is I think that each scene has something to learn from other scenes. Each country has something to learn from other countries. I think when I saw, the way you have so much investment in shows here, and I got like at first I was very like, oh, well, that's France, then that's Europe, that's the US can't do that. And I just kind of thought, I kind of went on a rant about this like months ago back in the fall, where I was like, wait, why can't we do this? Like, maybe not, it's not going to be at the same level, but the idea that we can't put funding into events, that we can't put funding in the community to actually grow arts and make that a part of our identity as a country, I think that's something that's you know, well within our capabilities. So I think also another aspect that I want to point out, and I see this growing more in the US as well, is that music collectives and music organizations, radio stations are much more community involved in Europe than I've seen in Europe. So like, or sorry, that I've seen in the US. I've seen there's a lot more education programs, a lot more outreach, there's a lot more charity, there's a lot more humanitarian work, and there's just a lot more community engagements. And these are things that I think we're capable of back in the US. And I've seen that in DC. I know um, I played my boy Brandon. Back, in Flash, and we donated a lot of proceeds to Solomon DC, who's a, who works with, the homeless community. But anyway, the point is, I think that the more that we learn about how other people engage in music, the more we can learn from each other and understand how we can kind of make our own scenes better. So I think, notes in terms from like where I think the DC scene or maybe US in general can learn from France is the idea that this is a part of who we are and that we shouldn't hide that. And it's less the scene, but more just like the country in general. And so we should embrace that. We should make it more accessible to as many people as possible, and not just in the big cities like DC, but in the suburbs, and places where you don't have as many people. I think that promoting music, electronic music, or any kind of music and making it accessible
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
so good for our
it needs to be
souls,
accessible
and that
to
we need
those
that.
people that it needs
Whereas
to
I
be
think the
accessible
French,
to those people.
yeah, and I think the French could learn from, uh, yeah, and I think the French that could learn from us. For one, have some more fun behind the decks. I think it's just fun. I love them, but also I love the movement. This is again because starting to get up there. I'm not 20 anymore. I love the movement
Yeah.
for early events in the US, like, shows that like start at 7 or are done by 10. I'm happy here to go out, start my set at 1 a.m. and stay out till 6. But I got things to do, man. Like it's tough to do that. I'm at an age where that puts me out of the count for the entire next day.
Yeah.
So I would like for there to be more kind of quote unquote normal hours. As that's we're starting to see that be a trend in the US, and I really like that. So I think more, I guess again, you want to make this music as accessible to as many people as possible. Um, so I think the more you can do that and not just like make it okay, we're only gonna do this at
Yeah,
2 a.m. in a nightclub. if you can bring this to a street or a bar in a kind of small area at like, 6 p.m. on a Thursday, I think that's fantastic. So, parting thoughts. Travel the world, learn, as best as you can. There's so much you can learn from people, not just from music, but just from your interactions. If you can learn a language, please do. It opens so many doors. And, we're all just trying to figure out the same things. So life is short, life is tough, meet new people, have new experiences, and party safely.
Yeah, brother.
That's all I got.
All good words. And I like we kind of said about the um, different hours. Like we've seen the trend from coffee shops to sushi joints to sidewalks to the many parks and such we have around here. And
Yeah.
Again, we talked about this before. Like to me, the more places, the more accessible, the better. And wherever there's an appetite for electronic music, like we'll do our part to set
And
a
for
table.
all those new ravers out there, please have some etiquette.
And for the experience, like bring them along. Right. This
yeah.
isn't the competition
Inclusive
of who does it best and right. This
Yes.
is, like we said, it's a community oriented thing. And sometimes it takes a nudge and, admonition, however you want to say it, but inclusive, not exclusive.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Hey man, thank you so much. We are let's wrap it up here. We're about at an hour. This is gonna be a fun edit.
Let's compare foreheads right now. Look how much sweat is beating off me right now. Let's see. Yeah, look at Tommy
man.
over here. Oh, mop. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have
Oh, man.
we've been talking. Good.
And I got the most flexible ticket possible, so maybe I'll give it another month so I can avoid August or sorry, September, maybe get in October, so I don't.
Yeah, the shoulder seasons down here, the spring and fall are absolutely beautiful, and everything in between is just a sticky mess.
Yeah.
So, well, look, thanks to everyone who is watching. Thanks to everyone listening in. We've been talking to
Real pleasure.
Secret. Yeah, State Secret from Aix-en-Provence in France, and also my backyard once again. Thank you, man.
How can we reach State Secret?
Yeah, where can we find you?
Where can we find you?
On socials and such?
Sure. I do not. First of all, I do not envy your editing task coming up, Tommy. But you can find me. I'm primarily on Instagram at State Secret Music. That's where I do the most. I think I have to. I'm trying to relaunch SoundCloud here, but that's where I'm most accessible. Is so follow me on Instagram. Follow my if you can't fly all the way out to X to see me play, then please follow my boys at the Kindred Effect. The Kindred Effect Collective on Instagram. They do a lot of really cool things in DC. And just, if you can't see any of us, please support whatever local artists you have. So, but yeah, but State Secret Music on Instagram is the best place to find me. Yeah, but thanks for having me, guys. As you guys can tell, I'm long-winded. I can talk for hours, especially about things I like. So, I'm always happy to do so.
Thank God for multi-track recording on the Zoom pod track, because we'll figure this out.
We'll figure this out on editing.
It will sound better, I promise. Yeah. All right, we're out, brother. Thank you, man.
All right, brother.
See ya.
See ya.
It's all good.